Welcome everyone to this IPLD sync and community meeting. It's June the 19th, 2023. It's the middle of the year, hot in Germany, cold in Australia. And yeah, as every 4 weeks, we talk about random things about IPLD, but also that, if people have worked on things, we go over those, but also we tend to have presenters. We will see if we have some today. But also if you are interested in presenting something about IPLD, so it doesn't really have to be about like developing core IPLD, but can be just like users of IPLD, because like, at least from my perspective, I also see not enough examples of people actually using it. So it would be great, if you just build some application with IPLD, you're happy to present. Also, it doesn't have to fill the meeting. It can be just like 5 minutes or half an hour, just as you like. All right. So I need to pull up the notes document. I certainly have an update. So because there was, so as this meeting is only every 4 weeks, there's more things that happen. So there was a Rust multi-hash release, version 0.19. It's kind of a big release, not so much in regards to features, but really into refactoring. So it was basically someone from the P2P community came in, Thomas, and he wanted to refactor Rust multi-formats in a way that there are less breaking changes on the core parts of it. So we kind of now have the system split into several crates. And so we have the core part, which is really only the multi-hash implementation without the hashers. So in case you have been with the community for 5 years, you might remember that we had something similar in the JavaScript world, where we had JS multi-hash and JS multi-hashing. So we kind of have this thing as well in the Rust world now, kind of. And so our goal is, or also like how it works, is that if you, similar to what we do in JavaScript, is that you don't bundle all the hashers with the implementation, because then you have a huge dependency tree. But what you really do is you define your own, what we call codec table, and really just only use the hashes that you really want. And we have some predefined, you can import them and so on. But generally, you should use your own code table. This was the idea already before the refactoring, but now it's kind of like more obvious. And one of the features that some people, or many people, were excited about, we finally removed the identity hash from Rust multi-hash. So basically, we have APIs for the hashes, but if you want to use an identity hash, you kind of have it to wrap it manually. So we have basically a function call which says, take those bytes and put the identity thing in front. But it's not like nicely integrated into the API, because it causes a few problems, and it's kind of like now more obvious that you probably shouldn't use it, or if you use it, you should really know what you're doing. Also, one of the reasons, because like what we do in Rust is that we do for the hashes, so we basically stack allocate the things and put on the heap. So we already had the problem that identity hash had basically a fixed size that you need to define upfront. And then the problem was, if you then have an identity which is bigger, you might end up with panics and so on, because it doesn't fit in and so on. So now like this is kind of worked around, because now it's like more explicit that, you really need to do it manually, explicitly. So we'll see how many like complaints or bug reports we will get about this behavior, but we'll see. And also, as always, with Rust multi-formats and IPLD stuff, it's really open for contribution. So it's nothing set in stone. So if you have better ideas about APIs or anything, just chime in and report on the repositories. All right. That's what I had in my world. I guess that Rod might want to talk about Frisbee a bit, I guess.
Yeah, so 4 weeks is a long time now to go back over the stuff that you've done. So the main thing I've been working on is still Lassie. So Lassie is our retrieval client that speaks all the different IPLD protocols. And the majority of the work, well, a lot of the work around retrieval in the last couple of months has been around the new trustless gateway HTTP protocol. So it's been a big push across multiple teams to get an HTTP protocol landed that is good for IPLD, and it's sort of it's for trustless communication. So we shouldn't have to trust that the other party that you're talking to. You should be able to incrementally verify the data that you're getting. And it's going to be rolled out on, or maybe it already is rolled out on the IPFS main IPFS gateway, but then it flows all the way through the back end of the whole gateway architecture, which is being rebuilt in this distributed architecture that we're all currently working on across various teams. Not all, sorry, but I'm on one team, one of the 4 teams I think that's working on this distributed gateway thing, and the trustless HTTP protocol is something that is being used by various backends, including Web3 storage, who they have a lot of popular content that gets used by the gateway. So now the flow from the gateway will be going through this sort of distributed chain of nodes that are run in a trustless way that are able to fetch via Bitswap, GraphSync, and now HTTP. And so Web3 storage supports HTTP now, so you can fetch you'll be fetching data via HTTP to go back up the chain and eventually be served through HTTP from the gateway. But there's some potential for it to become some more prominent protocol in the transfer stack. It has its share of problems, just like every other protocol. These things are hard, but we're working through all the problems that we sort of know from all the various other protocols that we've implemented. It's not necessarily going to be the best protocol that there is for most use cases. It will be good. It will be the best for some use cases, but it does have the benefit of there's a whole ecosystem of tooling around HTTP. So if you're serving an HTTP provider, like Filecoin providers will soon be able to switch on HTTP mode. You can front your HTTP endpoint with Nginx or various other services to do all sorts of things that are easier in the HTTP world because there's tooling for it. You can do rate limiting, you can do caching, all sorts of things. These things already exist. We don't have to build them. So enable the protocol and then plug into an ecosystem of tooling, which is kind of nice when a lot of what we do in this part of the world, in the Web3 world, is just invent new stuff and have no tooling. You have to build it yourself. So this is an interesting adventure. So that's on the retrieval side. But the other thing I've been working on in my spare time is the flip side of Lassie, and a little project I released over the weekend called Frisbee, and it's a data provider that provides IPLD data on the HTTP trustless gateway protocol, and I built it because one of my frustrations has just been how hard it is to just serve data. I've got IPLD data. I want to share it between 2 nodes. What do I do? And the best answer is fire up Kubo nodes and off you go. And Kubo's great, but Kubo does a lot, and it's sort of heavyweight, and a lot of stuff gets opaque really quickly. And with the trustless gateway protocol, I realized there was an opportunity to do something that was really minimal, basically lean on a lot of other pieces to get the work done and write a really simple tool to do it. And so one of the things it leans on is the network indexes. So we have an indexing service now that the distributed set of indexes that index content across the IPFS network. And so instead of having to do the whole discovery thing, advertise on the DHT and all that stuff, which is, I don't love doing that stuff. It's really not what I really want to be doing. So now I can hand that off to the indexer and say, hey, here's my content, come and get it. And then have clients talk on the HTTP protocol and come and fetch content. So anyway, maybe I'll do a talk about that in the next time, unless we have folks come and other folks come and do it. Might do a talk about the trustless gateway protocol and maybe Frisbee as well. But if you want to check out Frisbee, it's in the IPLD org on GitHub. The name is Frisbee with a double I on the end, FRISBII. And you can run it as a CLI app. All you do is you point it at car files full of data, and it will go and just advertise and then serve that data and be serving, requested DAGs as cars via HTTP. Nice and simple. And right now I've got an instance running that's serving the latest snapshot of Wikipedia that is being shared across the IPFS network. So I have Wikipedia being served off a single node off it's like 500 car files, 280 gigs of data, and it's humming away at 1 gig of memory, serving these car files into the distributed gateway system. So working quite well, and it's quite fun to see IPLD data as HTTP. So that's what I've been up to.
Cool. I'm so excited to see again, like more like small IPLD pieces coming together, because like I always like, see 5 years ago, it was like, oh, I need to do something like pure IPLD without the IPFS kind of all those things. And yeah, so finally we get there. So that's super cool to see. Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have any update or wants to share things about IPLD?
And just wanted to say hi, and also that Rod, I'll probably be pushing a couple more experimental updates to that PR we were discussing. I think I'm getting a handle on where I want it to go, so I'll have something for you soon.
Marcin, for the benefit of the call, do you want to just do a brief description of what it is that you're up to, because it is quite interesting work?
Yeah. So it's been a while that I've been working on a way to be able to update IPLD nodes. It's currently kind of difficult to update nodes. Most logic creates new nodes that replace older ones, and that can get very complicated and non-optimal. With a nicer, more efficient way to update nodes, it'll make a lot of the logic easier, more efficient, and simpler.
So that PR is going in the Go IPLD Prime repo if anyone wants to have a look and participate. And if they have a use case, if you have a use case where you are you're mutating IPLD data through IPLD Prime, and you're interested in how that could be made more efficient, then that might be a place to go and participate and check out some of the benchmarks and the APIs that are evolving there.
I have something to share. I worked on my free time for a long time now, and so I will give a talk about it next week, and so I need to have it finished by then. So I will give a talk at a geospatial conference, the Phosphor-G, and so it's kind of IPD related, because what I always wanted to do is that you can do browser to browser sharing of data without internet connectivity. So if you are in the same Wi-Fi, you can just with WebRTC connect to the browser directly without any server infrastructure. So that's the idea. And of course, I will then basically, I don't really want to use it for files. I really want to use it for like structured data. So this is kind of like the IPLD relationship, but the really tiny part is only IPLD, because like I spent so much time on trying to getting it work. So the idea is that you basically scan QR codes of each other, and then you make the connection. And it ended up in like a huge rabbit hole. So I think the lowest level is me flashing routers with open WRT. Yeah. And so this is a basis, because this is where basically things run on. And so this is where you serve up the HTTP. And so I have like a small one of those pocket ones, and it has 8 megabytes of flash. And yet alone, my JavaScript thing with like libp2p and everything is around like 1 and 1.5 megabytes. So I had to strip down the image a bit. And then I found out that there's also a router which I now bought is where you can plug in a USB drive. So basically I would then want to serve map data because it should be a mapping application. So you serve up your map data from the USB drive. You have the application on the router, and basically you just plug in the router, and then you connect to it, and then everyone gets like this index page, and then you have you enable your webcam, you have a QR code, and then you just scan each other, and then you are connected and can then map things on the map. And once you're done, you can then duplicate the data back, and everyone has the data. So that's the idea. The hard part really is getting it work across browsers. And I've spent so much time on getting it work with Safari. I think I once managed to connect my Android device with Firefox to my friend's iPhone, but I'm not sure if it was really true or if I dreamed it up, because I just can't get it working anymore. So I've spent like last weekend a long time trying to get Safari on macOS work with directly with something else. And my conclusion, so if anyone wants to help or has knowledge about WebRTC on macOS and so on, please contact me. What I found out, which is interesting, is so the code works with one Safari window to the other Safari window in the same browser. Works, I can make the connection. It works with Firefox and Safari on the same machine, but it doesn't work from Safari on Mac to a Linux machine in the network with Firefox. It does not work. But what works is Firefox and macOS over the network to a Firefox in Linux. That one works. What also does not work is Safari to a Chromium. Basically on the same machine it does, but on other machines it does not. Yeah, so I had hope basically for the talk that I basically say, okay, put out your phones and make it work. So basically now people with iPhones are excluded, but I really think it's a Safari bug. I'm not sure. And also, of course, like basically it led to like, so as I base it on DP2P and so on, on the new WebRTC transport. So also, thanks to Alex Aching Brain, who also fixed bugs that I discovered when I did like my stupid experiments. So there were actually bugs, but now it seems to be pretty solid. But yeah, those details, I have no idea. I've checked really like the low level WebRTC stuff, the ICE candidates. It gets the ICE candidates. I don't know. Anyway. So yeah, if anyone's interested in those things, I've pushed already on GitHub, but it's really like just a work in progress. So basically next meeting I have something proper, because like for the conference I need to publish it properly. And I might also like, give a talk in this meeting or something about it. But yeah, I think it's really cool if it really works. And to conclude, so that basically why I built this is also an idea I had already for years, is I see it as I come from the geospatial world, really in the these disaster response use case where you don't have internet, because like it's, getting up a router with some HTTP static HTTP files on it is super easy, way easier than getting some internet connectivity on. So that would be my idea. Basically, you then have some like headquarter where you basically everyone in the morning connects with their phones, then they do the mapping or collecting data on their phones, and then they get back replicated, and then you have all the data. So that's kind of what I want to build. So that's my adventure, and yeah.
It's very brave of you to dive into that world.
Yes. Yes.
It never gets better. It never gets better.
Yes, WebRTC, yes. And also like I want to make it a bit simpler. So basically I also do the what's called munging, if people are familiar with it. So you manipulate the STP responses you get. So you have one less round trip of the data. So it's kind of like outside of the standard, but it's supported by all browsers because it used to work and so on. So it kind of like, this might also be the problems why it doesn't work on Safari and so on. So it's really super hacky, but I'm slowly getting there. And
there was some Safari things that were fixed in the latest announcement, the latest OS announcement, wasn't there?
Yes, yeah.
Did they touch on this?
maybe, but yeah, still doesn't work. So I've tried the latest version, and yeah, but yeah, so yes, so WebRTC is certainly tricky, and yeah. Yeah, and I was wondering basically why didn't no one else did? I mean, people did similar basic things with QR codes in WebRTC, but nothing like more elaborate. And I was wondering why, but now I know. So yeah, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, this was my fun project. All right. I guess if no one else has any updates or anything to say.
But for the benefit of those who've tuned in and for our advertised content, we did have a couple of people lined up to do some presentations, and but unfortunately, I think we've hit a US public holiday, and for people's calendars are not being checked, and so unfortunately, we're without our presenters. But hopefully next week, next month, we'll bring some more content.
Yes,
and
so the next
if not,
meeting...
I will have something lined up if not.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, so the next meeting will be in July. The 17th of July will be the next meeting. Yeah. All right. Cool. Then yeah. Goodbye everyone, and see you in 4 weeks. Bye.